Tawana Smith, City Clerk, is present. Don Wynn, City Attorney.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. If we can have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Pro Temp Lanier.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pro Temp. Do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions from staff?
None from staff, Mr. Chair.
I would like to see if our board members would entertain having a brief discussion and possible action for an item addressing safe harbor on the regular agenda.
Yes.
Yes.
Madam Clerk, do we need a motion? Can we just add that to the agenda as item 11?
You want to add it as 11B?
Yeah, 11B will work. We'll add it to the regular agenda at the end. Any additional deletions, additions, or substitutions? Disclosures by the board? With the Safe Harbor addition, I've had multiple conversations with residents in reference to Safe Harbor and representatives from the organization.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy, Chair Pro Tem Lanier,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes, Mr. Chair, with Councilperson McCoy absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Consent. All matters listed under this item are considered to be routine and action will be taken in one motion. There's no separate discussion of these items unless a councilperson so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Does anyone want to pull an item from the agenda? Can I have
Motion
a
to approve
motion?
the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, we do have a public comment card on consent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Yeah, we do it. Do we have a second? Motion been made and properly seconded. Public comment?
Mr. Lloyd Brown,
I'm just gonna come up here again and exercise my First Amendment right. Don't say anything to me, cause you can't. That's my right.
If you could state your name for the record, sir.
Well, my name is Lloyd Brown, and you already know that, but I'm just letting you know right now, don't interfere with whatever I do, cause I got 2 minutes and 42 seconds, and this is my First Amendment right, and I'm gonna sit here and be quiet, cause there's no use to telling you anything, cause you don't do nothing, no way, that benefit the people that I grew up with. Turn my back to you. Y'all, I'm turning to all my friends out there who always telling me to come over here and say something, but they don't show up. I'm turning my back on them too. Why don't you go over there and tell them this? I'm protesting now. I ain't talking about what you think. Why don't you go over there and tell them about that? Why don't you come over here with me? Shoot. Man, please. People moving in, people moving out, and they sitting on the corner building.
Please address the board, Mr. Brown.
Well, I figured I'd turn my back on you. I don't have to say nothing, then I just turn my back. I'm addressing you like that. That's the way I want to do it. And don't say anything. This is my time. It's not yours. And you know I'm addressing you. Don't come up with that. Nobody's stupid. You just want to be in charge.
Please address the board, Mr. Brown.
I'm addressing you. Can't you understand? I don't have to turn towards you, do it. Just shut up, man. It's my time. Honestly, it is. You don't know what the First Amendment means? Apparently you don't. So keep quiet. This is my time, not yours. Shoot. That's probably what's going on now. You don't understand really First Amendment or nothing. You just here in a position just to be there. Authority don't mean anything. Shoot. That's like them telling me to go run a soccer team in Canada. I don't know nothing about soccer. Same thing with you here. Y'all terrible. I see people moving in these places. Why should I come over here and complain? I'll be better off being silent. I hope somebody else picks
Thank you
this
for your
up
comments, Mr. Brown.
on CNN.
Let the record reflect Councilman McCoy is back on the dais. Councilman McCoy, we are going to be voting on consent. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chair,
Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
I'm present. You said back on the dais. I don't think I was here initially.
I'm sorry, Councilman McCoy is present in this board meeting. Thank you, Councilman. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel?
Yes.
Councilperson Mill Anderson?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier?
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson?
Yes.
That vote passes, Mr. Chair, unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Going into regular consent. I'm sorry, regular agenda. We have awards and presentations tonight? I must have the wrong agenda. I have the wrong agenda. Thank you, Pro Temp. Awards and presentations. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, at this time, I'll ask the Assistant City Manager, Ms. Deirdre Jacobs, to introduce our speakers to recognize Police Chief Michael Coleman. Ms. Jacobs?
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Evans, go ahead. Oh. Welcome, Ms. Jacobs.
Hi, good afternoon. For the record, I'm Deirdre Jacobs, the Assistant City Manager here with the City of Riviera Beach. The city received a request from the Volunteer Association and Fund of Florida and Florida Rising honoring the police chief, our police chief, Michael Coleman, this evening. I'm not sure if they're here or not. Okay, they're not here to present the award to our police chief. I suspect this item may be moved to another agenda at a later date. Okay.
Well, congratulations to our police chief either way. We look forward to seeing this presentation, and thank you for your service and thank you for your work.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure it's
Chair.
first on the agenda when we bring it back. Councilman
Mr. Chair,
McCoy, go ahead.
Ms. Jacobs, Mr. Chair.
Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
So do we expect him to be running late, or should we just go ahead and decide to pull it all together off of the agenda?
May I please?
Ms. Jacobs, please.
Thank you. It's my understanding that they're going to ask for it to be moved to another agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Thank you, Councilman McCoy. All right, moving into our ordinance on second and final reading, 8A. Madam Clerk?
Ordinance number 4239, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, fixing the adjusted tax valuation of real property located within corporate limits of the city, levying a tax on real property and tangible business personal property located within the corporate limits of the city for the fiscal year beginning on October 1st, 2023, and ending on September 30th, 2024, fixing the millage rate of 8.3500 mills thereon for said year, that the millage rate of 8.3500 is 6.97% higher than the rollback rate of 7.8057, providing for severability clause and providing for an effective date. Mr. Chair, we do have public comment cards on item number 8A. The acceptance of public comment cards for this item is now closed.
Motion to approve ordinance number 4239.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, if I can have the Director of Finance join me here at the podium. This item before you is Second and final reading of establishing the millage rate. Staff has proposed a balanced budget with a millage rate of 8.3500 mils, which represents a 6.97% higher than the rollback rate. The rollback rate would generate the same revenue that was provided to the city of Riviera Beach last year. And Mr. Sherman can provide any additional comments.
Yes, good evening again. Randy Sherman, Director of Finance and Administrative Services. Yes, this is second reading of ordinance 4239. You passed it on first reading on September 13th, and there are no changes to the ordinance, and staff recommends approval. I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Board members? Councilwoman McCoy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Sherman, you said this was passed on first reading?
Correct.
Okay, what was, do you recall what the vote was for first reading?
I was not at the meeting. I believe it was 3-2, but I was not at the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman Botel, go ahead.
Thank you. A question for Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans, why is it that we can't lower the millage rate? What would the result be? Walk me through what happens if we were to lower the millage rate.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
The board does have the right to lower the millage rate, but it would be staff's recommendation that you would adopt the millage rate that's before you this evening for multiple reasons. In the event that you were to reduce the millage rate, we would have to make some significant reductions in level of service as well as personnel to effectively balance out the budget. As we've seen, all the goods, commodities, and services that the city acquires or that the city provides have gone up exponentially, even down to, for the utility district, we've seen 200% increases in things that we routinely used to buy for significantly cheaper. So it would have a seismic impact to the agency in the event that the millage rate was reduced at this particular moment.
Any additional comments, Councilman? Councilwoman?
Yeah,
Councilwoman
what is-
Pro Tem, go ahead.
when you say 6.9% higher, what is the difference between this year and last year?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, please go ahead.
The city of Riviera Beach saw an evaluation increase in the property values of roughly about 7%. That's the total taxable value throughout the city of Riviera Beach. So your tax rate is the same, but it reflects an increase because the value of the asset that persons own in their home has gone up. Now, if persons have Save Our Home, the most their home can go up is 3%. But that's why it's considered a tax increase. If you were to consider adopting the rollback rate, it would effectively generate the same revenue that you collected last year. So the increase is predicated on the value of the home and the assets and the businesses going up roughly about 7%.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Board members? Madam Clerk, public comment, please.
Yes, Mr. Lloyd Brown.
No, you can have.
I know
Welcome,
y'all
Mr. Brown.
think that because I come up here and I'm silent, but let me tell you, there's a lot of words I can say that y'all probably wouldn't want me to say.
You can
So
state
I'm
your name
just
for the
gonna be
record, please,
silent.
sir.
I'll address, my name is Lloyd Brown. That's great. My daddy's name was Tom Brown. My mama's name was Lucy Brown. I had a brother named Lindell Brown, another one named Tom Brown Jr. Got a sister now named Rita Brown. Is that enough for you? Is that enough for you? So now you know who I am? Let me tell you, to come over here and speak and ask questions, I mean, it seems like it's irrelevant. I mean, it's like all y'all do is, what can I say? I ain't much on big words. It's like you patronize the people. That's what you do. You tell them all this good stuff that's gonna go on, and you use all these big words, and then you go in the neighborhood and you don't see, you know, if somebody came here and they saw all these black people in Riviera Beach, they'd say, these people must be really doing good. They got a whole black council over there. But if they actually got here and moved in, They'll be saying like, I got to get out of here. Honestly. See, I mean, I'm not talking on that. I'm talking about my First Amendment, and I'm just protesting everything I see. You know, we got people moving in the neighborhood, they don't even speak at all. At all. And some of these houses that these people, I knew people that lived in these houses. You know, I be wanting to cry. How my neighbors losing their houses? And then they have a council that's a majority of colored people, not black, colored people. And man, they not doing nothing for the black people in the neighborhood. It's a shame. I mean, it is a shame. Riviera Beach is terrible for us. I mean, the people who knew when Kennedy was there, when Riviera Beach High was there. I used to jump the fence to go to Riviera Beach High games anyway. But people who lived here and know about Goodmark Park and know about a lot of things. But now, the people moving in the city, they putting mobile homes in the backyard with people living in them. We couldn't even do that. I know a man owned property. He couldn't do nothing. They said it was too small. Now you look around here, they squeezing houses in these lots. Well, when these black people own them, you can't even squeeze them in. And like, y'all ain't doing nothing for us. So why should I come over here and ask you to do something when I know you ain't gonna do nothing? I mean, hey, you might not like what I'm doing, but I really don't care. Honestly, I don't care.
Thank you for comments, Mr. Brown. Board members, any additional comments? Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Mill Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
No.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes 4-1, Mr. Chair, with Councilperson McCoy dissenting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 8B.
Item 8B, ordinance number 4240, an ordinance of the city of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, making appropriations and establishing a budget for fiscal year beginning on October 1st, 2023, and ending on September 30th, 2024, providing for a severability clause and providing for an effective date. Mr. Chair, we do have one public comment card on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on item 8B is now closed.
Motion to approve ordinance number 4240.
Second.
Motion been made and properly second. Ms. Evans?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, this item before you this evening is the final adoption of the budget. There has been no changes since first reading, and staff recommends approval on second and final reading. I believe the Finance Director, Mr. Sherman, has a brief presentation. Mr. Sherman?
Evening again. Actually, I don't. I can do one if you would like, but I was not planning on giving. Again, as the city manager said, there are no changes from the ordinance passed last Wednesday.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Questions from the board? Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
Yes. So there's not been any changes. Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct.
So when we decided to remove the 22nd through 25th Street from the capital plan, what happened to those dollars?
That's on the next item. This
Right.
is-
So did it get reallocated to a new capital project, or did
No,
it stay into operating?
That project was dependent on receipt of certain revenues. And so we're going to pull that, and again, it's HC, but we pulled that one out of the CIP, and when revenues become available for the project, then we would amend the CIP and bring it back.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Councilman McCoy.
Mr. Sherman, so considering the rollback rate of 6.9%, 6.97% was higher, do you know approximately how much more in dollars did we generate this fiscal year that's being proposed than last?
Yeah, it's about 4.4 million.
So we're collecting $4.4 million more for fiscal year 2024 than we did in fiscal year 2023.
Correct.
Okay. Well, members, and I want to remind you, I'm going to renew my objections to supporting the operations budget for the city of Riviera Beach because of the increased spending, and we literally find a way just from last year to justify, which I haven't seen, another additional $4 million in expenses. So I'm not going to be able to support this budget.
Thank you, Councilman McCoy. And members as well, I did not support this item on the first reading. There was a couple concerns with the increase of the dollars being spent. Also, my sentiments of we have so much development happening and messaging that needs to be done. I really would implore my members to discuss with staff a direction of marketing, advertising, promotion, and branding for our city. With one of our speakers at a utility district said we have over $400 million of development in the pipeline, and realistically, we have closer to $1 billion of development that's coming in the next 2 to 3 years. So if we're addressing all the infrastructure and we're running as a business and protecting and supporting our residents, I would be supportive of us having a comprehensive marketing strategy to advertise, support, and talk about the city, because we can't attract development, growth, and jobs and opportunities without having a unified branding strategy. I believe that's something that we should have been budgeting because we have to be intentional about it. In addition to the comments that Councilman McCoy, that's why I didn't support it the first time, and I won't be supporting again. Madam Clerk, did you have a public comment card? And before we go to that, actually, board members, any additional comments? Madam Clerk, public comment card, please.
Yes, Mr. Lloyd Brown.
I don't mind doing this. My name is
Welcome,
Lloyd
Mr.
Brown.
Brown.
I'm here again. I don't mind doing this. I really don't. And this time, so you won't have to say nothing, I'll just be quiet for those 3 minutes. I won't say nothing. I'll hold my head down in a moment of silence for all them people that don't come over here and the ones that we got over here supposed to be doing things for us.
You can take the book if you want it.
I thought that was him. Excuse me, residents, please turn off your phones.
I used to hold my breath for 3 minutes. Can't do it for one now.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Brown. Any additional comments, Madam Clerk?
No, sir, that's it.
Board members? I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
No.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson.
No.
That vote passes 3-2, Mr. Chair, with Councilperson McCoy and Chairperson Lawson dissenting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 8C.
Item 8C, ordinance number 42-4241, or ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, modifying and updating the city's 5-year capital projects plan for fiscal years 2023/2024 through 2027/2028, providing for a severability clause and providing for an effective date. Mr. Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on item 8C. The acceptance of public comment cards are now closed.
Motion to approve ordinance number 4241.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, the item before you this evening is second and final reading of the adoption of the 5-year capital improvements plan. The only change that has been made is as a result of the discussion that we had with the board concerning the roadway infrastructure projects from 22nd through 25th. Those particular projects have been unfunded for the purposes of complying with what the request of the board was with respect to that particular item. So there has been no changes besides that in the capital improvement plan, and staff recommends approval on second and final reading.
Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman Botel, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, should that item come up and be approved, how do we go about putting those road repairs back into the capital improvement plan?
Mr. Chair and members of the board,
Mr. Evans?
I don't want to be presumptuous as it relates to any particular project, but if funding ever does become available for any of the projects that are unfunded in the capital improvements plan, we would amend the capital improvements plan and then provide for the funding. So if there's an appropriation that's provided from state or federal government or other revenue collection that the city does receive, we would just amend the capital improvements plan and bring the necessary funding forward and then commence the construction of the activities or the project.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please recognize the mayor is now on the dais. Councilwoman Botel, any additional comments?
I'm done.
Thank you. Board members?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Sherman, Mr. Evans, thank you for this capital budget. I think historically, you probably can guess that I am going to be able to support the capital because I know how important it is that we have streets repaired, that we have our parks maintained, that we have our facilities maintained. So certainly we have a lot of capital needs in our city. So I am going to be able to support this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councilman. Any additional comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes, Mr. Chair, unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Resolutions, item 11A, Resolution 133-23.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing the City of Riviera Beach Procurement Department to participate in procurement of goods and services that have been publicly solicited by other governmental entities, authorizing the use and purchase of original equipment manufacturer, OME, parts and products, proprietary and sole source goods and services, utilization of renewal options when available, annual services, maintenance and repair agreements routinely used in daily departmental operations for fiscal year 2024 through 2029, authorizing the city manager to execute services agreements, including renewal agreements within this award authority. And, sorry, Mr. Chair, I have to turn the page. Providing for an effective date. Mr. Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on 11A are now closed.
Motion to approve resolution number 133-23.
Second.
Madam Clerk, let the record reflect Councilman McCoy has left the dais and returned to the dais. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair and members of the board, if I can have the Senior Procurement Specialist, Ms. Tanisha Boynton, to make this presentation.
Welcome, Ms. Boynton.
Hello, Chair, council members.
The purpose of this resolution is to replace the previous resolution 119-27, which authorizes the departments within the city to utilize piggybacks, cooperative agreements, and other sources to procure services and goods. By authorizing us to continue to use these types of agreements that are available, we have access to various discounts. It also addresses the unique needs for like departments such as USD, Public Works, the Storm and Water. They're able to purchase various unique goods and also obtain certain services. Our IT department, some of the examples of contracts that we utilize would be Granger. We also use Office Depot, Amazon. Those are some of the piggybacks that we use for various supplies of goods and goods. We also use Sunbelt to rent some vehicles that the Public Works Department may use. Caterpillar and John Deere are proprietary OEM. Original equipment manufacturer parts and equipment. So if we have a need to utilize their equipment, we're able to do so by way of use of Sourcewell, NASPO, Omnia in the state of Florida contracts that are out there. Our IT department actually uses a source of piggybacking to procure our computers and our, our computer and also access software programs such as Microsoft and other internal necessary equipment that we need to maintain operational status within the city. We do have access to other municipalities as well to use their contracts that have been competitively solicited. For example, we have in the past and recently used City of Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach County, City of Deerfield, and Pompano Beach, their solicitations and contracts to obtain certain goods and services specifically to USD's needs, as well as Public Works and all of the other departments that we have within the city. These contracts, again, were already competitive solicited. And as far as cooperative contracts, we partner with other agencies that allow us to participate in the solicitation process to make sure that our needs are addressed in those as well. And again, that gives us access to a large variety of discounts. This is not a means to replace the procurement department from doing solicitations specific to the city needs. However, it has been able to provide a gap while we work on improving our processes and also work with the department so we can begin in this upcoming fiscal year to do solicitations that will be available for all of the departments to access and also address the special needs that USD may have and the CRA as well.
Thank you for coming to the point. Madam Clerk, public comment, please.
There are no public comment
Thank
cards
you.
on this item.
Comments from the board? Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Boyne. You gave us a whole lot.
Oh, sorry.
The resolution that you said that this would be replacing was 119. I think you meant -17. I think you
Yes,
said
I'm sorry. Yes.
-27.
No, 17. Yes, you're correct.
Okay, so if we chose not to adopt this resolution, would this in some way impair procurement's ability to purchase or acquire the items that they need?
No, sir, because we actually have in our procurement.
So I appreciate you answering that with a no. So let me go into my next question so we don't spend too much time. So if this doesn't impair, if this is not adopted, why do we even need to approve this?
Chair, may I?
Ms. Boyd, go ahead.
I'm, as being managing the day-to-day operations right now for the procurement department, I was making an effort to address the previous resolution that was approved by City Council, which expires September 30th of this
this year to ensure that we still have a resolution in place to be used by the departments with their piggyback and cooperative agreement purchases. That's why this item was brought aboard. Before City Council.
Thank you, Ms. Boynton. Mr. Chair.
Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, right, and I think we talked about this yesterday, if we choose not to adopt this resolution, no effect would be there would be no impairment or no reason why procurement wouldn't be able to acquire or departments wouldn't be able to acquire their materials, parts, what have you. Is that correct?
Chair?
Ms. Boynton, go ahead.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so wouldn't it be from a logical standpoint to consider this impertinent, redundant, and I would go and say unnecessary if our code 16.5 already allows us to do this? Now, that's a statement. That's not even a question. So I would ask this last question. Did you review the 119-17 resolution and backup documentation that was presented back?
Chair?
Ms. Boynton, go ahead.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so what was the motivation to even introduce this? Because if, I don't understand why we spend 7 minutes now even discuss this if this power is already called out in the code that we can do this. Because it's not like we're entering into an agreement with anybody. We're just making a proclamation. And if that's the case, why just not make this in perpetuity and don't create it for 5 years? It seems to me if the code already says it, there's no third party to this, or second party, I should say, to this resolution. What's the purpose of us even having this read today? So why not just make it a resolution? Because it's already, and then here's the interesting thing. The reason why I say that, because if you understand what the statutory definition of a resolution is, that's an expression of a body. If it's the expression of a body that's typically of temporary nature, you would create a resolution. If it's an ordinance of permanent nature, well, if it's an ordinance, it's something you want to create for permanency. So I just don't know that this is necessary, and I appreciate all of the great work that you're doing in procurement, but I just don't understand why we're bringing up items that are redundant and waste a bunch of staff time as well as board members' time. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman McCoy. Additional comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Oh,
Chair Pro Tem Lanier,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes 4-1 with Councilperson McCoy dissenting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Residents, if you've just arrived at the beginning of the meeting, we added an additional item to the regular agenda. If you'd like to submit a card now, it is in reference to safe harbor discussion and possible action. So if you'd like to submit a card, please submit one now. Please. Let the record reflect Councilwoman Lanier has left the dais. And we'll just give a
Mr. Chair.
few moments. Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
thank you. So I guess I was out at the start of the meeting when additions and deletions occurred. So can you share with me what I missed on the safe harbor item?
Yes, sir. We decided to have we voted to add this item to the agenda as a safe harbor discuss. I'm sorry. It was a consensus to add the item to the agenda as a safe harbor discussion and possible action.
Okay. Well, while you're doing that, I want to be recognized to explain a couple things, if you don't mind, relative to this.
Absolutely.
So
Thank you.
I find it very interesting and very ironic. I would go even further to say coincidental, and I'll go even further to say a conspiracy regarding this, because that's funny that you and the other members came to a consensus about this item. I was in City Hall picking up my teal binder here, and I ran across a staff member that had actually noticed a rehearing of the, she was actually en route to deliver mail to notice the residents of a rehearing for October 4th. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, this city council on September 6, 2023 definitively voted down the approval of a zoning map amendment And under what practice or policy can a staff member or anybody other than the city council bring back something that has already been definitively disposed of by the city council? So I just want to understand exactly what to expect with this discussion, because apparently there were members in the community as well as staff that perhaps knew that this was coming back up, hence why they mailed or attempted to mail out the mail notice. Even further, Mr. Chair, I think as a professional courtesy to all the members here, if there's some information that perhaps one or more of us were not privy to, I would certainly ask for it, because I went even further to drive by the site that's being proposed, and I looked at the posting that was on the site, and on that site, there again was an advertisement saying that a rezoning was occurring on October the 4th, and I'm saying to myself, I'm certain I went back to the September 6th meeting and watched. It was a 3-2 vote. So how is it that staff, members of the city council have a desire to bring back an item, and it wasn't shared uniformly or done in the sunshine? So I certainly would like some indulgence on explaining how we get here and what we should expect, because clearly I didn't get the memo on this one, and I'm very much concerned about the practice and what we're going to do for it, because I remind members and those in attendance that we are prohibited by our charter from interfering with staff. And I think it's probably understood that staff cannot usurp and subvert the authority and will of the city council. So certainly, Mr. Chair, if you have some information to share to that effect, or any member has some information to share to that effect, I certainly want to be brought up to speed with that.
Well, Councilman, you made comments stating that it's funny that and reminder of our ability to interfere with staff. And I guess for clarity, we could just kind of put on the record. Mr. Evans, were mailers sent out?
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Please.
No, mailers were not sent out.
Okay. So no mailers were sent out. And typically, items that are noticed would be referenced based upon the direction of the board. I believe, based on Councilman McCoy's comments, that there were mailers that were printed, but there was a conversation on last week that discussed that we would be having a follow-up meeting to address safe harbor and possibly a discussion to have a renewal, because I believe I'm the one that put that on the record. So that was in a public meeting from what I understand. If I'm being clear, I stated on the record that we would be having a continued discussion about this and possibly a renewal.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Mr. Evans, please.
To that point, and there also was subsequent conversation that even this board had about the other items that were rescheduled at the request of the applicant for a future meeting. So to the point, and to provide clarity with respect to the notice, that was something that staff at the time was anticipating, that there was a situation, and a lot of time as staff, we have to do the if then what. So staff was creating or providing for the notices in the event that something happened, that there would be notices ready and available. Staff has already been talked to with respect to not usurping or subverting the authority of the board, but it was something that they were preemptively getting ready for in case this item was discussed by the board. And there was conversations in public meeting that this discussion was not complete in its entirety, because there are some outlying items that are still available for the board to dispose of or the applicant to handle.
And just for clarity for the record, Mr. Evans, did any board member outside of a general meeting give direction to you or staff to print or send mailers out for a zoning notice?
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Mr. Evans.
No, there was no direction that was provided to myself or to staff for the purposes of facilitating, the notices or drafting the notice. And I do want to go a bit further, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
There's a lot of time that we have conversations with multiple board members on decisions that you all make and decisions that you will make and decisions that you have made for a variety of different reasons. And obviously, we cannot carry messages to one another with respect to what another council person is discussing, but we do try to help provide clarity and perspective and what the policies, practice, procedures, what the code and what statutes say with respect to any item that the board may be asking its staff on. It's no different than the discussion that happened similar to Lone Pine and to other issues that the board did want a reconsideration or an opportunity to redress an item that was previously disposed of. Robert's Rules of Order in and of itself contemplates that a board may want to revisit something in the future. And so there was, discussions with staff concerning this particular item, but there was no explicit direction that was provided to staff. Even the meeting that was scheduled for the purposes of the public communications, staff's only involvement was to get the document signed, to notice the meeting, and then to draft a brief memorandum on what was provided to staff via the council to staff from the residents on the safe harbor issue.
And outside of that issue, I could actually give a personal reference to where I've had conversations with staff, i.e. in reference to a marketing director. My conversation with Mr. Evans, we talk to Mr. Evans on a regular basis. He was very clear, and I was very clear, that we want this to be the pleasure of the board. And if that decision was of the board, we would move forward with that. So Mr. Evans waited till the board made a decision after discussions in the sunshine. So Councilman McCoy, as we go into this item, I think you had addressed some concerns and sentiments about possibly action being given to staff outside or some possible nefarious plot, but I'm hopeful that that answered some of your concerns. Councilman McCoy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, it did not, because I don't think you asked the relevant question. So can I be recognized to ask the manager some questions?
Well, before we go back into your comments again, Councilman McCoy, if we'd like to hear from any of the other board, we do have some public comments,
Well,
and then we can.
I disagree, because I don't think he answered the appropriate question. So if you give me a little latitude, I can explain and clarify, because I don't think you exactly asked the correct questions to get to where I was trying to go.
I agree, but let's actually give the latitude to the rest of the board so they can comment before you comment again, Councilman. If my board does have any comments prior to the public speaking.
I'd just like to say that the first part of this meeting, there was a suggestion or a notice by the chair to add this to the agenda. The members agreed. Mr. McCoy, you were not in the room. Prior to this, at a prior meeting, the chair made the request for a special meeting to hear from the residents of said project. That meeting happened last night. So these were some issues that have been talked about in our council meetings in regards to this issue, and it was placed on the agenda. It was placed on the agenda tonight, for us to have a discussion about it. I don't see any issue with that.
Thank you, Pro Tem. Notice and comments, Councilwoman Miller Anderson.
Yes, well, my comments has nothing to do with it being placed on the agenda. I just wanted to make a comment in regards to me not being at the meeting last night. I did state on our last meeting, last Wednesday, that there was a conflict for me and that I would not be here. And just to go a little bit further, I have already had a town hall meeting with the residents. We put out notices at every home over there, and we had a town hall meeting, so I have heard from them. But I was not able to attend last night. So I just wanted to put that on record, that it was known that I was not going to be here last night. It wasn't a surprise, and I do believe Chair Lawson did state that towards the end, that I'd already put on record that I wouldn't be here. All right, thank you.
Yes, Councilwoman Miller Anderson. I did state that you and Councilman McCoy would not be able to attend. Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Evans, to talk about these mailers, why weren't the mailers sent out, Mr. Evans? And if you could be very specific, I would appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
I did receive a call from Councilperson McCoy with respect to the mailers and a copy of the mailers, and then I called staff and asked the question with respect to the mailers, and also directed the assistant city manager to have a discussion with the department director and said staff with respect to the mailers. So that information was provided to me, and then I communicated it to staff.
So what was the nature of the mailers that I specifically brought to your attention that was completely improper?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
It was the notice that the councilperson spoke of with respect to the reconsideration of the rezoning.
Okay, well, Mr. Evans, let me correct you. It was not anything to do with reconsideration. It actually has something to do with the zoning map amendment. So I don't understand, once the city council takes a definitive action, how does staff go back and then decide to renotice something to be heard again? So it didn't have anything to do with reconsideration. Reconsideration was only offered tonight. What I'm speaking of is what I seen yesterday that clearly says that there will be a hearing for an amendment to the zoning map from downtown residential to downtown marine. So certainly the conversations you had last night was not contemplated, Mr. Chairperson. I'm not even speaking of the community involvement. I'm speaking of specifically if we have voted on something and we've made a deliberate and definitive board decision, which requires a majority vote, then that's where it ends. Staff is not authorized under any circumstances to re-advertise an item to be heard until the board takes action on it. So I'm not simply suggesting that the conversations that you had last night were involved in this notice. What occurred last night is completely separate and apart from the notice that I've seen. So basically what I'm saying is, even when I drove by that site this morning, there is postings at the site that clearly lays out that there's going to be a zoning map amendment to be heard on October the 4th. And members, I'm asking you the question of how is that possible when we clearly voted that down? So how would staff know, or other than psychic ability, to decide to do that? And I specifically followed up with Mr. Evans and the department director to ask if there was a discussion that can be had. And to date, I did have a brief discussion with Mr. Evans prior to the meeting, but I think it's important, especially when I was out, to find out when I walk in the room that safe harbors added to the agenda. So even if staff had decided that this was something that they wanted to do on October the 4th, the other problem that I have with it, and why I specifically think it's a problem when staff subvert or usurp the council's authority, is that the notice was not even timely. So that's the other issue, Mr. Chair. So it had nothing to do with the meetings or discussions that you may have had with staff. Once the board takes action, that's it. And that's no different than the item that I brought up and why I can't support the utility district plan. You have so much undermining going on. When the board takes action or don't take action, staff seems to take it among themselves. Case in point, how do we now expend $125,000 out of utility district budget towards the fire station when we never voted on it as a utility district board? So it's these kind of activities, whether you agree with it or not, that clearly somebody's doing something that they shouldn't be doing, and it deals a lot with commingling and certainly undermining the will of the board. So, I mean, I'm not sure if you understand it, but clearly this was moments away from going out in the mail. And I just so happened to see, well, we've already voted on rezoning. How can that come back up? That shouldn't be the case, Mr. Chair, because if that's the truth, then staff can come back and do every rezoning that we've ever done. And that's the point that I'm trying to make. And I find it very ironic to have a discussion about safe harbor added to the agenda when I was out. So I wanted to certainly understand what, if anything, did I miss?
I think the irony, to answer that on my behalf, was that we had a public meeting last night that had a lot of insight from the residents that was noticed. We had a good turnout from residents and had a good rapport and conversation and dialogue with them based upon a lot of residents clearly stating that they actually don't mind the project. They actually support the project, but they just want to see some additional dialogue, discussion, and some needs that they have addressed. You've made comment in previous meetings that we've had multiple summits. Safe Harbor has the applicant has had multiple conversations with the public, but as a board, we haven't had an opportunity to kind of hear from them. Councilwoman Miller Anderson had a town hall that I showed up to, said hello, and had to leave because of the sunshine, and I wanted us to have this in the public. The conversation was also based upon the general comments of you seeing this notice yesterday, but also remembering that this discussion did happen in last week's meeting when I did request to have a general meeting and a meeting with the residents. So if staff chooses to do an if-then scenario, what I'm more so concerned of is if there was no interference with Councilman McCoy, you seeing the notice, and then Mr. Evans, you taking action based upon the direction that you've decided on, and then changing it based upon your sentiments of Councilman McCoy. I want us to stick to what staff is going to do, but then making sure that you're just being clear with your action and direction. I don't want his interference to change the process of what staff is supposed to do. So when he called you, if your intent was to send that mailer, then you should have sent the mailer, Mr. Evans, versus taking the sediments outside of the council meeting. So if we're talking about interference, that's my concern, Councilman McCoy.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Evans.
Mr.
I'm sorry, Councilman McCoy.
Mr. Evans would agree that that's not interference. This was already decided on, so this was a error by staff. There was no interference. I recognized something that was wrong, and I brought a
The
problem.
mailer was on the way out, Councilman. You made a call, and he stopped it.
But
That's
the
interference,
mailer
Councilman.
was completely wrong. So, I mean, you're
That's
saying
still-
that I can't bring...
That's still interference, Councilman.
Okay.
You started this with interference and direction to staff. So if we're being very clear, Councilman, that was interference.
It was not, Mr. Chair. And if I tell you, if you look up the code section, actually the charter section of interference, and I'll share with you, I specifically said through charter review meetings, and you're not prohibited from bringing in issues to staff that are a problem. And even administration recognizes it was a problem, because had they not, then you would have erroneously sent out a notice that was not even timely and was fundamentally, the notice was defective.
I would love to hire you as our city manager one day, Councilman, but this is not your role. So if we're going to allow for staff to do their role, we're going to allow for Mr. Evans to do his role. And I understand that you are trying to take on the role, but you are a policymaker, and you've said on the record multiple times, your role is to pass a balanced budget and to pass policy, Councilman. So I agree with you. You don't need to be doing staff's job. Mr. Evans, we need to make sure the job is done better. Are we clear with all of that, board members, so we can get into the actual discussion of why we called this?
Can we move on?
Can we have public comments, please, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Colin Adomo, Leah Gaines, and Lloyd Brown.
Good evening, Chair Lawson, Ronnie Felder, Mayor, and Jonathan Evans, staff, council members, and everyone in attendance as well. One thing I just sort of wanted to comment real quick on the exchange here, just a brief note. Although it is protocol, I think flexibility amongst the board members and the council members is incredibly important on such a sensitive issue as Rybovich. This is an issue that cannot just be disposed of after an initial 3-2 vote. Okay, I commend Chair Lawson for bringing this back up and having a further constructive discussion. Now I'm going to switch over to, I've talked to Safe Harbor members, and I think what we're trying to do is through constructive conversation between Safe Harbor and the residents, not only of Lakeview Shores, but also the city, citizens of the city of Riviera Beach. I think what happens is what has to be considered by the members of the board is that all those improvements are going to come off the table, okay, and in that 3-2 vote, and the taxpayers are going to have to foot the bill for the improvements in Lake Park Shores. That's something that we need to really take another look at. And Safe Harbor wants to sit down with the community. They want to have a constructive conversation. It's a round table. It's going to be an unofficial meeting. I've already talked to Safe Harbor about it. I'd like to have the 7 members of that represent themselves on behalf to join us, and other community members to come in and voice their opinions and have a constructive conversation back and forth as to maybe how we can meet somewhere in the middle for a resolution. I think it's a win-win if we approach this properly. But if we both take a rigid stance, then nothing really gets achieved. The city loses, the members in Lakeview Shores, they're going to have to foot the bill. Those problems aren't going to go away tomorrow. Okay, but the beauty of this is that if we can have a constructive conversation with Safe Harbor officials, they may extend that olive branch and bring it back. I'm not saying they will, but I think instead of the rigidity that I'm seeing here in this conversation that's taking place, not only tonight, but in previous meetings, I think we need to sit down, and I think we need to have a conversation. And I'm willing to sit down not only with the people in the neighborhood that I live in, but of course with officials from Safe Harbor. I'm almost out of time. Once again, thank you for your thankless job, your time, and your consideration. Have a good night.
Thank you for your comments. And residents, to address those comments as well, the passion you see on the board is the love for the city. There is not a contentious item or divisiveness. It is the passion that we all have for the city. So I want us to remember that the dialogue and discussion is to further improve the quality of our community. Welcome, Ms. Gaines.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Pro Tem, Council. Leah Gaines, Safe Harbor Rybovich. We're here because we really want the city to move forward with the project, and we appreciate that. I understand Councilperson McCoy's issues. However, you know, in law school, we always learn reasonable minds can differ. So I'm hoping that, you know, whatever we come up with, we can, if there was something that went wrong, there can be a cure so that we can move along with this. But we, just as an update, yesterday was a really good meeting. You heard directly from the residents again. They had also presented a formalized list of some issues that they wanted Safe Harbor and the city to consider. And we already have scheduled, I believe this upcoming Tuesday is a tentative, we haven't confirmed yet, a meeting to sit down with them to really go over those issues. So we're working in good faith, and we're doing that because we're hoping that the project can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Gaines. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Lloyd Brown, Mr. Peter, and then Ms. Brandy Davis.
Welcome,
I'll
Mr. Brown.
address y'all, council and everybody. How you doing? You know what? I hear them talking about Safe Harbor, but when I came in here, I only saw 4 black guys working for them. And the one man who said he had 3 months, he had to say something good because they could have fired him. You know, the 90 days, he probably didn't have 3 months. See, I'm going to be straight up with you. Those people on the other side of the track, they don't know anything about this. They don't come to meetings. I mean, I think the whole general population, I don't care whatever you do over here, it affects the whole city. Like if you're just going to bring in Safe Harbor and you're not going to hire nobody but these people who come in with you, I mean, the hell with it. I mean, keep it where you got it. Take it down to Miami. Take it up to Jupiter. Take it somewhere else. If you're not going to help the whole population and you're only going to hire 4 of us, you got to be out of your mind. And I hear this lady talking about, you know, these people. And I know I understand what McCoy said. Y'all voted on that. I thought you did. I was in here. And I heard y'all turn it down. I mean, so Trump doing the same thing with the election that was already done. So I guess he's going to do it with this one if he lose. But y'all already voted it down. I was in here. Didn't they vote it down? Or somebody voted it down. I know the people who were happy that you didn't have it going on, they didn't clap because you voted for it. Now you're going to change it? I mean, forget them people. Do what the people who live here, what they want. If they want it, let them vote for it. Don't come up here and let y'all vote for it. Put it in paper and put it on a ballot. And then, you know, if you want to rezone it, they're going to be rezoning this area. The next thing you want to do, we want to go across Broadway, and we want to get in here to where, you know, we want to rezone all this property over here where you got homes. We want to rezone it to marina property. Because you do have a lot of places that got boats on the other side of Broadway. So what if they want to move? Say, well, we need more space. Because I know this is a nice marina and this is a nice place, but it was nicer when I was coming up. You can't even get over there now. I mean, open up an area to where you get the citizens who live on the other side and everywhere else, where we can walk through and go toward the intercoastal. Because I know if it was a war and if I was in the war, I would have to fight for those people who want to just come in and put up signs, say no trespassing, hire their own people. That's BS, man. Come on.
Thank you for comments, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Peter, Ms. Brandy Davis, and Mr. Travis Bethea.
Evening, council members.
Welcome, Mr. Peter.
Mayor. Just wanted to say, I'm sorry I missed the finance part of the issue. I just wanted to state that was a little concerned that the Palm Beach Post stated one budgetary number. And my understanding from when I was here before is like 176,000 or something, 176 million. So I was just.
Mr. Peter, we're still going to have general public comments, but this is Safe Harbor. So
well,
you can also comment on general public comments with the same items as well.
Sorry about
no
that.
worries.
Just want to say thank you for the meeting last night. I believe it went well. I'd like to see it move forward in a continuance we do still have considerable issues to rectify or consider. I know we're having a meeting, but moving forward, I would like to make sure that those comments and issues are addressed as we stated in yesterday's meeting. So that's it as far as Safe Harbor goes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then remember, we still have general public comment at 7:30. Thank you, Ms. Peter. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Brandy Davis, Mr. Travis Bethay, and Ms. Paige Parker.
Welcome, Ms. Brandon.
Evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. I also want to reiterate our gratitude for the meeting last night, and for myself, I do respect the original decision. I respect the reconsideration. I'm just worried that maybe there's not enough time if this does come up very quickly. If it comes up as was kind of floated earlier, October 4th, that doesn't seem like enough time to make any real changes to a site plan. And there's just a lot there. So I don't know what's an appropriate time for that. I think other people can weigh in. Straw man proposal, I was thinking 6 months. But if we were to come to agreements and with the city and with the residents, and we were to figure out a way to make this work sooner, I'm all for it. I don't want to get in the way, but I just think that given the types of things and the complexity and all the dependencies, it might take a little bit longer to kind of have those changes, see those changes, and have everyone that needs to sign off on those changes. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Brandy.
Mr. Travis Bethay, and then Ms. Paige Parker.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Welcome, Mr. Travis.
Thank you, Chairman. Travis Bethay, 37 East 24th Street. Sorry I didn't make it last night. My father was brought into the ICU, so I had to go see him. I felt like that was my biggest priority. His levels have gotten back to normal, so I'm here again. So with the Safe Harbor, on the flyer you said was printed, the downtown residential zoning change brought back up. To me, that's like the biggest striking point. We need a buffer between our houses and an industrial boatyard. So the plan needs to be changed. Okay, everything can be compromised. Everybody can work something out. But to shove a 24-acre industrial shipyard into a residential neighborhood in a downtown area, we want a walkable Broadway, right? That's our plan. Avenue C to continue through. So as the residents, a couple requests we had, right? Don't give them the exemption for the trees. We asked for the parking garage to be moved onto Broadway so all the traffic comes in and out right off of Broadway. There's 2 traffic lights there. They were blocking one off totally for themselves. So there could be a compromise, but everyone needs to work together. And like I said, the city to me is just as important as our neighborhood. That needs, both of us need to be happy for this project to work. If we're both not happy, this project shouldn't go through. Everybody should be happy with this. Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you, and our well wishes to you and your family, Travis. Thank you.
Ms. Paige Parker, and Mr. Chair, this is the last public comment card on Safe Harbor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Good evening, everyone.
Well, Ms. Page.
Just wanted to say thank you again for last night's meeting. We look forward to this hopeful meeting coming up on Tuesday with Rybovich. They really came up to us outside after the meeting last night and said, we want to work with you guys, and we are so excited about that. It is a very complex issue, so we probably will need more time. We want to get this right the first time. It's so important to the entire city, to our neighborhood, and to Rybovich, and the future of all of us, the future of our neighborhood, the entire city, and Rybovich. So we want to make sure we get it right the first time. So we might need a little bit more time due to the complexity of this issue. So we hope that you keep that in mind, and thank you again for all your hard work in listening to us on this project, because I feel our neighborhood group really wants what's best for the city, for Rybovich, and for our neighborhood as a whole, for everyone to work together and move forward. So thank you again.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Page. Additional comments, Madam Clerk?
That was your last public comment card.
Okay, comments from the board?
I'd like to say, Chair,
Please. What time?
when we talk about bringing an item back, I need to be clear about how that happens. During the other hot contention neighborhood issue, Lone Pines, it was defeated the first time 3-2. They needed a 4-1 vote, same as this. It came back and it was defeated 4-1. They brought it back to discuss. It was voted down. They brought it back again for the Live Local Act. So this is not anything that's different from what has happened in the past in terms of giving a community the opportunity to say in their neighborhood, this is what I want, what I don't want. But in terms of this coming before the board again, is something that has happened before. And I don't see any difference in this, given the fact that Lone Pines came back 3 times after it was voted down. So there's a precedent in a sense where this came back the same way this Lone Pines issue came back to the city. I just wanted to make that statement.
Thank you, Pro Tem. Additional comments from the board? Well,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Millage.
Well, I guess I think I would like to hear from you or whoever as to what our intentions or what we're planning on doing with it. And then I can make comments from there once I figure out what the item is about, what we're
Yes.
here for.
Well, based upon the conversation with the community and the sensitive nature to this item, I wanted to bring a motion to renew and direct staff to bring back before the board ordinance 4231. That was defeated by a majority 3-2, and set a date. And I agree with Councilman McCoy that October 4th is too soon because that was no, I'm sorry, I agree with the speaker that came in. We need some time to have some discussion and dialogue. So I would like staff to come back and set a date and come back to us with some feedback from where they see this project being able to be addressed after our community has had good discussion with the applicant and have an opportunity to hear this again. So I'm asking for a motion to renew and direct staff to bring this back, item 4231.
Do you need a second?
Please.
Second.
Motion made and probably second. Discussion. Go ahead, Ms. Miller-Anderson. Ms. Miller-Anderson.
Okay, so as everyone knows that I did vote against the project, and I think I was very clear a lot of times with many people that, I don't live over there. The residents do that live there. Over the last several months, I've heard from them numerous times, whether it's been text, call, email, or town hall meetings. I've had conversations with Safe Harbor as well. Now, I know that one of the things that I continued to say back and forth was the residents and Safe Harbor needed to speak. I appreciate that it's going to happen again now, but I have been saying that forever, so I don't know why the conversations were not had before we voted last week or whenever we voted a week or two ago. Because now, after I've made my vote, we're saying, let's reconsider this so that they could have conversations. Well, we've been talking about that for a while now. So if that was the true intent, why wasn't it done some time ago? But here's the thing. If the residents are saying now that they're willing to continue conversations, I have no problem with supporting bringing it back with the fact that there's going to be real conversations, because I don't like making a vote and then switching up and coming back and changing it, because my vote was my vote at that time. And my vote is still the same if we are going to continue down the same path. If conversations are going to be had, that's fine. But that was said some time ago. So I can support a reconsideration if the residents are now saying they're willing to work with Safe Harbor again to see where it goes. And then we could go from there. So, I'm fine with it, but I'm not going to change my vote to sit here and just extend it. And then we turn around and don't have these conversations and nothing comes out of it. Because we've talked about this. They had meetings at Inlet Grove. There has been many, many meetings and nothing changed. So that's where I am with it. I don't like changing up my vote because, there was thoughtful consideration made and conversations had before I made that vote. So, thank you.
And I agree with you, Councilwoman. Because I'm bringing this item doesn't mean I'm supporting this item. I'm bringing it back because I've heard multiple residents and from the applicant that they're willing to work. And I agree. And this is just notice for every person interested in this city. Have conversation, impactful dialogue with our residents, with our community, and make sure we're all on the same page and understanding what needs to be brought to this community. Because I remember during these meetings, Ms. Miller Anderson asking for the applicant and residents to have conversations because there was like butting heads. So again, this doesn't mean that I'm supporting this item. This means that we need to have some additional discussion and dialogue because this is a hefty investment into our community. And we want this opportunity, but it has to be right for the community and not just the adjacent neighborhood, the entire city. I believe Mr. Brown stated this has to impact all of Riviera Beach and be a benefit. So I agree with that. Board members?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Botel, please.
Yeah, are you suggesting that the entire, and there are many issues around this safe harbor Rybovich, are you suggesting that all of those items be moved to a later date, later than the October 4th date at which they were originally considered to be?
It was
Or-
originally considered, I think, for the 27th.
Oh.
And then, so I would want staff to give us clarity, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, no,
Councilwoman
I get,
Botel.
that's my question, I guess, is should we
Yes.
be not considering them all at the same time? And so if we push the date for, if we vote to reconsider, do we have to have a date on which it would be reconsidered? And is that date going to be the same date as the other items that involve safe harbor Rybovich?
They would definitely need proper noticing and time to have the conversations and move all of the items. So that would be on Mr. Evans and staff to discuss when this item would need to be brought back. So I think we need to have it moved from the 27th. The October 4th date was, I didn't see a notice, but I believe that's what was seen or potentially going to be sent out, and that was noted on the property. But as we all said, that doesn't give us enough time.
Okay.
So with the proper timing, I think staff needs to let us know how much time they're going to need to come back. I would like to see it within a timely fashion, but it's going to be based upon the conversation, dialogue, and when it's prepared.
Okay, and I have a second question.
Please.
So what will be different from the conversations that have taken place already? I mean, why am I under the impression that Safe Harbor Rybovich has had numerous meetings with the neighborhood? Is that not the case? I mean, maybe that's a question for Safe Harbor. I don't know. But I thought I saw dates where meetings had taken place and numbers of people who had been there. I guess my question is, what's going to be different? Because there, I think, looking at that list of requests, demands, if you will, that we got from the community, there are some items on there that Safe Harbor is not going to be able to accept. For example, you can't put trees in the middle of a shipyard. I mean, just to give one example. So there are going to be things that Safe Harbor might not be able to say, yeah, we'll go along with that because it's not in the best interest of their business. What will be different about these conversations as opposed to the conversations that have already taken place?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chair.
Councilman McCoy.
So what are we talking about? Are we talking about the rezoning or are we talking about elements of the site plan? Because Councilwoman Botel is alluding to tree placement, and that's purely the site plan. So what
Excuse
are we?
me, Mr. Chair, I'm alluding to the list of requests that were provided by by the Lakeview
Civic Association.
community. Those are the requests about which there will be conversations prior to the next vote. And so that's my question. Will those, two questions, will the vote be postponed until some subsequent date after these conversations? And how will these conversations be substantively different?
To that point, Councilman, to address your parliamentary inquiry, Councilwoman Botel is still on the item of the safe harbor topic. We are in discussion of the renewal of the motion. So I believe that, go ahead, Councilman.
So that's why I'm disagreeing, because
I agree.
here's why. So I certainly, she has the ability to talk about it, but when you make a motion to renew that ordinance,
and
we're
I
only
hear
specifically
your-
talking about that
I
ordinance.
hear your objection, and I agree, Councilman, that would be actually Councilwoman Botel discussion after we've disposed of this item, being that the motion was made. The item started with the discussion with safe harbor, but a motion was made to actually renew the item, and that's where the discussion needs to surround renewal of this motion. And then we can go back into that discussion after this has been disposed. Councilman McCoy, please.
Thank you. So we're on the renewal of the ordinance, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what was that ordinance?
just moved it. I apologize. Let me find it again, Councilman.
4231.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Okay, so procedurally, have you consulted or sought some advice from legal and the parliamentarian on the applicability of renewals and how and when it applies for items that are disposed?
Sought legal advice? No, Councilman.
Okay, so here's why, and I think I want to share this with Ms. Councilwoman Botel, specifically looking at this latest editions of Robert's Rules. She specifically brought up the point of site plans, and here's specifically what it reads in 38:1 of the renewal section of motions. Renewal of a motion is limited by the basic principle that an assembly cannot be asked to decide the same or substantially the same question twice. Now, here's my question. Are we talking about the actual rezoning? Because any other conversations outside of the rezoning is not germane to this subject, because I would agree. I have some concerns about them not fulfilling the requirements of our current code in terms of landscaping, but that's not what we're talking about. We're specifically talking about the rezoning. So we can't be asked to bring back the same question exactly the same. We can't be asked to reconsider the same exact question or substantially the same. My question to you, being that you created the motion, I don't know that we should be it's not proper for us to be deciding on whatever agreement that's worked out between Safe Harbor and the residents, whether or not that depends on whether or not we rehear the zoning. And that's why I asked you, is there something substantially going to change that we should expect in the rezoning? Because if there is going to be the same rezoning, then I'm not sure that we can actually renew that motion. And that's what I cited specifically from here. So I just want to understand what's your expectation as to what's going to happen with rezoning.
Well, to address the first point, I completely agree that once the motion was made, the discussion then changed over to the renewal of the motion for the rezoning. Based upon conversation with new information that was received and discussed, that's where I'm asking for staff to have the discussion, have the insight, and to bring it back so that possible new information will be presented to the board. Do we know? No, we don't know if they're going to be able to have any substantial change that would cause for a vote to be changed, but I do believe I have the rights based upon Robert's Rules to bring that item back at this regular council meeting for the sake of having new information presented.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman?
Okay, so, I would patently disagree, and I would say that I object because your reason for new information is not called out in Robert's Rules of Order for renewal of motions. Mr. Chair.
Councilman?
Specifically, I think if you're referring to a reconsideration, it reads in 37-1, the purpose of reconsidering a vote is to permit correction of hasty, ill-advised, or erroneous action, or to take into account added information or a changed situation that has developed since the taking of the vote. Now, if you choose to go the route of reconsidering it, I seem to still have some disagreement with that, but you said based on some new information, even into that realm, Mr. Chair,
Councilman,
we don't even understand what is actually changed in terms of zoning. I've not heard anything that's been presented that says there was something that was changed in terms of zoning or going to be changed in terms of zoning.
I believe that was discussed during residents' engagement with the option of taking into consideration jobs impacting the zoning with the actual zoning change that could be presented to the board on the discussion that was had with the residents and with the Safe Harbor organization, that the renewal was an option versus the reconsideration.
Okay, well, I'm going to renew my objection, Mr. Chair, and place it on record that I object to it being consistent with the rules established.
Thank you, Councilman. Any additional comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel?
Yes.
Councilperson Mill Anderson?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
No.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier. Chairperson Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes 4-1, Mr. Chair, with Councilperson McCoy dissenting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're going to go into public comments. Comments from the public shall start at 7:30 unless there's no further business of the City Council in which the event shall begin sooner. In addition, if any item is considered at 7:30, then comments from the public shall begin immediately after the item has concluded. Please be reminded that the City Council has adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings, which has been posted at the front desk. In an effort to preserve order, if any rules are not adhered to, the City Council chairperson may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, or from the building. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chair, we currently have 14 public comment cards. Public comment cards. The acceptance of public comment cards for general public comments are now closed. First, Mr. Lloyd Brown, Mr. Philip Dukes, and Mr. Manny Xavier.
Hello, you don't have anything to do with what I'm talking about now, because you wasn't in when they were building the house 10 years ago. And I went to Bernard Mack, Priscilla Taylor. I went to all these people because the man that was building the house, he died, and they let Mercurial Construction Company keep doing it. But the two individuals that came down, that were the overseers of the house, they let them just do anything they wanted to do. And there was one guy that worked there, he said the foundation was bad. And I kept going to these other council members, and then I kept going to Priscilla Taylor, even went to Channel 12 News. When they said the one to turn to, they turned, but not to me. And then I went to Palm Beach Post, they didn't do anything. Now, Mercurial Construction, I know that this money you get from the federal government, if you don't use it, you don't get it the next time. So, but why would you use some? Okay, the building inspector came out and he looked at my house. You know what he did before he knew who built it? He said, man, this was a terrible job, whoever built your house. And then when I told him Mercurial Construction did it, oh, that guy, he does really good work. But then up in the roof, there was a square. Now, if Riviera Beach did inspections, these extra boards in the roof wouldn't have been there. See, they pencil whooped it. I had all the paperwork and all the pictures taken. I turned them into the city, not y'all, turned them into the city, and they lost them. I mean, they lost them. I mean, now I'm breathing. I don't know if they use Chinese drywall or mold because the roof was leaking. It's a new house. My windows won't even go up and down. Honestly, none of them. They all crooked. Mercurial Construction, if they still working with you, Jonathan Brown, I know him. If they still working with you, something wrong. Okay, that's the end of that. I just want him to know. All right, let me tell you another thing. The bus stops, you can go up there by Lowe's. They got a bus stop where people could get in. They got these two-seaters in Riviera Beach. You think you're sitting on a damn swing. And you got 15 to 20 people catch the bus in the morning. So does the city have to pay for these bus stops that are enclosed, or is that somebody in the city say, oh, we don't want to put no bus stop enclosed because people will be sleeping in it? But what about the old lady who come up there with some of her grandkids and want to catch the bus? I mean, she's the one you got to worry about. Go around down Old Dixie and on the other side of the tracks, don't stop me, on the other side of the tracks, look at those spaces where they got the bus stops. I'm serious, that's dangerous. Ride down there and look to where they got the bus stops. And you'll say, right by the railroad track, and there's a fence, but it's like this much space between there and the road. So y'all should do something about that. I gotta go, my dog's calling.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Philip Dukes and Mr. Manny Xavier.
Well, Mr. Dukes.
Dr. Philip Dukes, 181 West 18th Street, City Council, Mayor, City Manager, everyone else. Last week, I told you about Kilowatt, but I didn't finish. It's important that we have a Black Culture Center in this city. I was asking for this back in 1999 when I started, before I got sick. And from that time, we still have no Black Culture Center in this city to teach Black history. Black history should not be taught in February. It should be a part of the whole spectrum of history, but our nation, our society, has always pushed that aside. Now, Kilauea was a city in Africa. They were the first people to sail to China and India. They created that route. But in our history, in American history, it's always seemed like Black people were dumb and ignorant in Africa. They did that for a reason. I'm going to talk about that later, why the ideology and that philosophy came to be. In Kilauea, it was a city of commerce, gold, and riches. But when the Portuguese came in 1498, they came there with 3 ships to check it out. This had been going on for hundreds of years, long before the first European built any boat to sail anywhere. Black people were sailing against the wind at 35 degrees. They were doing that, but you won't find that in your history books. And if you study Bansell Davison, he's an Englishman, and he deals with this. Now, he comes in there in 1498. He comes back and checks out the city. He comes back 7 years later. In 1505, Thursday, January 24th, with 14 men of war and 6 caravan ships. They sacked, raped, and murdered those people and tried to erase all of the east coast of Africa, all of those cities going all the way down to Zimbabwe, took those trade routes and destabilized that area. Admiral Dalmena did that. But those people had high culture. Black people have always had high culture. But we do not teach that. Now we have to teach our other counterparts in our country that we're not changing history. We're telling you what you didn't learn. And this is why you have all these feelings about Black culture and Black people in America when we start talking about history. That's why our governor doesn't want to teach it. So we have to teach it to not saying Black people are superior, but to draw everybody else. Civilization started in Africa. Not that guy who talking about we came from monkeys. That's a hypothesis taught as truth. But our culture, we need to teach our culture. I hope we get a Black culture center in Revere Beach, and I'm going to be talking about this every first and third. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Dukes.
Mr. Manny Xavier, Ms. Anna Vergney, and Mr. Travis Bethea.
Evening, Chair, Council, Mayor. I want to start off with some discussions that were held at last night's meeting towards the end by a couple of council members, specifically Ms. Lanier and Dr. Botel. We are not against the development, okay? And there were some questions as to if we're not against the development, why are we coming up and I guess, complaining a lot? We're just trying to do what's best for our communities. So Dr. Botel, I bumped into you at the comprehensive plan review and you wanted to preserve Singer Island. We want to preserve our communities as well. And we want to do what's best for us. That's all we're trying to do. We're not against Rabovich expanding as long as it's done within reason. There are some items that we presented. We hope that they're all met. I don't know how you have insight as to what they're going to approve and not approve because I haven't heard a thing. But if you would like to share that, we're here to listen. When it comes to jobs, at the first P&Z meeting, Mr. Pinsky kind of let the cat out of the bag, but you can double check me and see if I'm wrong. If you go to the transcript on the first P&Z meeting for March 23rd, page 129, lines 10 through 15, and you can also watch it on the YouTube, Riviera Beach TV. He mentioned 250 people that come down to Riviera Beach every day, and they can use the buildings up front to, quote, to shop, to train, and to mentor their employees. Well, I've been through this song and dance before. Rabovich has been here, I believe, since 2005. Back then, they needed jobs. They offered training. Riviera Beach residents needed to work. Nothing has changed. It's the same old song and dance. So just keep that in mind. There was a question about how can we force them to operate retail, offer restaurants, cafes, etc. on those buildings. It's very simple. The same way you do it here in the village, the same way we do it throughout the city, by codes and zoning. It's simple. You have the CRA here. They can work in conjunction with the CRA to offer development benefits for new businesses that want to lease those facilities and start a new business. They can work together. And if a few years go by and they can't make it work, we can address some possible changes. But I think that it'll be a good benefit if they did that. So we're not against Rybovich. We just want stuff done in a certain fashion. And yes, it should benefit the entire city, not just us residents, but the entire city. We're looking for a place where people can come to a downtown, enjoy their time, shop, have jobs available if they so wish to go through those kinds of jobs. And Ms. Clark, who sits on the Planning and Zoning Board, she did mention that some of those jobs shouldn't just be entry-level jobs, which I totally agree. There's much more professional jobs that they can offer us.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And yes, we do need more time.
Thank you for your
We do
comments.
need more time. Thank you.
Ms. Anna Verdney, Mr. Travis Bethea,
Welcome, Ms. Anna.
Hi, my name is Anna Verdney, and I live at Lakeview Park. I wanted to clarify some things on the record for my council. The Ribo development has been here, and if they wanted to give jobs, they would already be doing that. If there's a legal agreement between the city and Rybovich in regards to job, we would love to see that, because it was mentioned last night and I was not here. Workforce development may be your passion, Dr. Botel, as trash-free communities is mine, but sometimes the detrimental impacts of the residents takes more of a priority than development, and this is the case here. You would not allow it, and you protect your communities, and I appreciate you for that, but we deserve protection also. Yesterday, my councilwoman was called to the carpet. It was unnecessary and inappropriate, but if we really look at the behavior of some of the representatives, it really goes against the rules, and we're not having that conversation. The sitting council are the ones that impact the decisions in regards to Ribo at this point. As Mr. Evans said, the amount of staff hours dedicated to Lakeview Park, yes, the amount of staff hours never brought to the table the alternative plans that our community has presented to his staff. Residents of Lakeview Park should not be used as pawns in these negotiations. It is the city's responsibility to ensure that our needs are met. The fact that we are taking action to protect our community is our responsibility as residents, but it's your responsibility to follow the charter and the ordinances of the city. Lakeview Park has more than met our responsibility to tell this board what our needs are. We have submitted a specific list, not because there are wants, we need them. And we're here to once again ask you to consider the needs of residents rather than promote development in an already struggling community. It is not for some council to negotiate after we have been asked repeatedly to negotiate with Rybovich. The last meeting we had with Rybovich, we were told they were not changing their plans. I don't know why we're still talking about that. They said they were not changing them. What is it about that you guys want from us? I don't understand. Please tell us. If they don't want to talk and if they don't want to change their plan, we cannot control that. We can't control their behavior. When we speak of interference, it happens all the time. And this is not by any way a McCoy issue. I have sent example after example to Mr. Evans, and if you are that passionate, Councilman Lawson, then protect us. Stop with the back and forth and the continued conversations. Let your passion be reflected by your future votes to protect my community and stop the pushing reconsideration at bright line speed.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Anna. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Travis Bethea,
Thank you.
Ms. Brandy Davis, and Mr. Peter Haruta.
Welcome,
Hi,
Mr.
Travis Bethea, 37 East 24th Street. So one thing I realized on the budget, it was you're going to fix the road 22nd Court, 23rd Street, 24th Street, 25th Street, right? But every time Rybovich was up here, they were saying, we're fixing 22nd Street all the way down and we're going to put in the new boardwalk. So it's like they're taking credit for what the city was going to do. That was one like discrepancy I noticed, which, a lot of things they said was a discrepancy. So I went to every single one of their meetings that you brought up. They put up the list of all the meetings. That was one thing that Anna brought up. They said, oh, whatever you guys want, but we're not changing one thing on this piece of paper. 24-acre boatyard. That's the problem. It can't be that big, and it's got to work for the residents in the city. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Peter. I'm sorry, Mr. Travis.
Ms. Brandy Davis and Mr. Peter Haruta and Ms. Verissa Voss.
Welcome, Ms. Brandy.
Thank you. I actually just wanted to withdraw my comment because we already handled what I was going to address. So thank you all.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Brandy.
Mr. Peter Haruta, Ms. Verissa Voss.
Welcome again, Mr. Peter.
Council member, sorry about earlier. Just one of the things I was saying is this, in the Post-Times, they talked about a figure. In my understanding from the budgetary meeting, it was 176 million was the budget figure that was talked about in the final numbers. I am concerned that the building department is lacking staffing in, I'm an electrical contractor and I do work there and frequent the building department. Planning and zoning has that much staffing. I didn't see any budgetary numbers in the new figures for staffing for planning and zoning, nor did I see anything for the inspectors and plan review and what have you. I have a concern. I do know that the city takes in, hypothetically, large numbers for revenue for permits and impact fees. I'm assuming, based on that, don't know figures and facts, but there should be money allocated or at least available to staff these very important things that, other than going outside, shipping outside sources to come and review plans, because we have a lot of plans and big facilities coming into our thing. I would like to have our city benefiting from the finance part of that and having that money go into our pockets, not into outside sourcing parts to get money. I'd like that to be our money coming in, working in our departments. And I do believe we definitely need more staffing as far as planning and zoning in the electrical and building department. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Peter.
Ms. Verissa Voss, Ms. Cindy March, and Ms. Dolores Williams.
Commissioner Dawes.
Hello, council members and mayor. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Verissa Lal Das. That's like Marissa with a V. I am the Port Commissioner for District 2. So I just wanted to give you a quick update. We at the port are really trying to stop those long railroad traffic stops that cause traffic backups at the intersection of Blue Heron and 45th. So one of the things that we did is we made the stop a little further down, and we've been working with FEC, and I'm happy to report that we have a good time now where those traffic stops for the railroad should only be about 5 minutes long. And that's something we've been working on. Hopefully we'll see that implemented full time over the next couple weeks. So thank you so much for having me. And I just wanted to give you that update.
Thank you for your update, Commissioner Dawes, and thank you for that as well. I'm sure the community will be very happy and pleased with that. Thank you.
Ms. Cindy March, Ms. Dolores Williams, Ms. Marvelous Washington.
Welcome, Ms. March.
Good evening, Council. My name is Cindy March. When you all spoke about Robovich, really, I don't care. Because what are you all doing for the west side of town? This is one city. And talking about he will fix this street and he will fix that street. My question to you all, what happened to the infrastructure money? Them not the only streets need to be fixed in Riviera Beach. A whole lot of streets need to be fixed in Riviera Beach. We need businesses over there on the west side. We need more than, I keep reiterating, we need more than fire stations. We need something where our kids can go and play or be at in a recreation when they get out of school so they don't be in harm's way. You understand me? This Robovich boat thing, how many people look like me on a boat that's gonna be going over there? You understand? He bring 30, 40, 50 people in here, but he hired them. So what? You got to work somewhere. But that don't mean that you give them the world. You can't just satisfy one set of people and don't satisfy all, because you got to remember, we're the one put you all in office. And you all some kind of way just go beside what you want to do. Once you set a referendum, once it's on the agenda and it be knocked down, it should stay down. If you're going to do for Robovich, you need to do for Lone Pine. You need to do for Monroe Heights. And you all didn't reconsider them coming back to the table, not Monroe Heights at all. So you need to reconsider what you're doing with the voters who vote for you all and put you all in office. The only time you see them big developers in here when they want something. And it's not fair to us as citizens who have been in the hood, who have to scuffle and get it from the muscle. And we depend on you all, and you all come to us. Y'all don't go to them for the votes. We bring in more votes than Singer Island would ever bring in. The numbers are at the supervisor election office. I've been doing this for over 30 years. I can tell you about the numbers. Okay, only 2,000 something votes come from Singer Island. If we get up as a whole on the west side of town, we can progress. But you know why we're not progressing? Because the people like you who we put in office, you all do not set ground for us. You all don't stand for what's right for us. And it's time for you all to stand for what's right for us. Don't come grab our votes and then shove us to the side and then give the big developers what they want. That's not fair. This is one city. And the only way we're going to progress and do better is we work together. The big developers have gotten enough. Enough is enough.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. March.
Ms. Dolores Williams, Ms. Marvelous Washington, and Ms. Rochelle Hughes.
Good evening to the chairman, all the councils, the mayor and the city manager, and the citizens of Riviera Beach. It's a citizen of Riviera Beach that includes us for everything. I want to say one thing. They put a speed bump on my street. And you know, they did circles over on 13th Street. All those traffic, those big trucks, they come around and go down my street. They said it was cracking their houses, so I guess my house ain't gonna crack up none, I don't know. But I wanna know what happened. Are we gonna have to have our water boiled? Y'all know about the big water break last night, which is steady going on out there, flooded the whole street, Australian. Do y'all know anything about that?
Let staff answer the question when you're done, Mr. Lawrence. Go ahead.
Well, I want to know, do I have to borrow my water now? Because they're steady out there working. That thing flooded that whole area around there, and they steady working over there. You just see all the broke pipes all up, stuff they did there. And I don't want to say, because it seems as if putting one speed bump, like it's my intelligence, the kid got hit, one got killed, and you can put one speed bump. You need to put one at the beginning of 9th Street so you can slow them down so they can't make another speed there. And I'm just very disappointed. You didn't help Lone Pine, you didn't help Monroe Heights, and definitely you don't do as much as you should do for the west side. I tell you, I'm gonna go around and take pictures and bring different things. On my street, the streets are cracked. When they dug up, you go down and drag your bumper and all that stuff. Y'all need to do a little bit better. I think y'all some good people up there, but you got to figure out 1, 2, 3, what comes first and what comes second. Everybody should get the same amount for their section of their area. My council person, I think she's trying to do all what she can for us in her area, but I want them to do more for the city of Riviera Beach, and I want another speed bump there. Don't insult my intelligence that one speed bump halfway through gonna satisfy somebody, and you still got all those UPS, FedEx flying through there in the morning. They be lining up so they trying to duck the red light. So I need somebody to come there and do that. And don't I'm gonna get out there, do like the lady did. The lady had a hair dryer, and she's sitting at the light there. They thought it was she was doing the speed thing, slowing them down. But I'm not gonna do that. But we just need some more help here for our city. Please come on.
Thank you for comments, Mr. Lewis.
Ms. Marvelous Washington, Ms. Rochelle Hughes, and Ms. Doretta Polk.
Good evening, Council, City Manager, City Attorney, Marvelous Washington, Lone Pine Estates. Thank you, Councilperson McCoy, for bringing up an unethical problem that we've had with the council bringing up agenda items after council has made a decision. For example, the rezoning issue of Lone Pine Estates. You guys have made a decision to revisit the issue based off a misinterpretation of the Live Local law. I've been to multiple meetings throughout the county, and particularly the city of Palm Beach Gardens, who is going through a similar issue with D.R. Horton. And D.R. Horton, they voted down the development that they had, and then D.R. Horton had to go back and speak with the residents to get their approval. But what I noticed between the way they negotiated with the city of Riviera Beach, because the city of Palm Beach Gardens compared to the city of Riviera Beach, not one time did they threaten to use a law that hasn't been used yet in the state of Florida. Not one time. I've said in multiple meetings throughout the county, no one has did a presentation on the Live Local law because developers are coming in and wanting to work with the city elected officials, wanting to work with residents to get their projects off the ground. I think it's disingenuous to the residents and the residents of Lone Pine Estates that you even brought that to us, saying that it applies to a area that's zoned recreational, when it clearly states in the statute that recreational areas that are zone recreation compared to the comprehensive plan is exempt from this Live Local law. That's just one area that's zoned that is exempt from that. So it bothers me to know that you guys continuously, I guess if you don't like the vote, you bring it back and then hope that it changes. But that's not fair to the residents. It's not fair at all. Tonight, I listened to you guys decide to raise the taxes that's going on in our community, in addition to the utility taxes that's going to raises that's going to come forth. I don't think residents are against what you're trying to do with the increase in taxes, the increase in utility rates, because we know that our water plant needs to be improved. I think the problem is we distrust your decision making as it relates to the extra money. We've had multiple raises to our utility rates. We have not seen anything as it relates to those raises. You haven't done anything about it. One that was improper, we never received that money back. We never received that back, and we never saw anything that's being done. And that's the issue with residents in the city. It's not that we don't want to see development, just like the gentleman saying, it's that we want to see appropriate development. And for you to listen to the residents and act on behalf of the residents. I don't know how many of my neighbors have came up here and spoke out against that development of the golf course. We're telling you we don't have stormwater that we pay for. We don't have appropriate stormwater in our community. It floods with just light rain. None of you guys, well, I'm not going to say none of you guys. Some of you guys are not listening to us. I appreciate those who continue to steadfast and keep their vote the same. But thank you, Councilmember McCoy, for bringing up the unethical decisions to bring these items back up, knowing that they were voted down. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Rochelle Hughes, Doretta Polk, and Ms. Mary Bram.
Hello, my name is Rochelle Hughes, Lone Pine Estates. Let me tell you, I didn't think I was going to be back up here this quickly to discuss Lone Pine. After the June vote of 4-1 against rezoning the golf course, I thought, wow, I can take a breather. And then magically, it got brought back up for reconsideration. And thank you, Mr. McCoy, for bringing up what you did. So, and as Ms. Washington pointed out, recreational open space is not part of the Live Local law. I've spoke to several state legislators that were in on this vote, and they have said the same thing. Even, I believe, somebody brought up the permitted uses that the city allows for on recreational open space. That still doesn't qualify the land to be used for Live Local. I know D.R. Horton is trying to get in there. They sent out flyers to us about having some meetings again. Their first meeting that they had was last Tuesday, which also was the night of our homeowners meeting, association meeting. So we were there. I don't know how many people attended. I didn't ask, but I just, to bring back up something that was voted down, voted against It should have been end of discussion. And before taking a letter that D.R. Horton wrote to the city, and all of a sudden, as shake, quiver, whatever, there should have been like more thorough research before bringing that item back up for reconsideration, sorry. So I'm hoping we can put this item to bed real soon. Because I've been I was very passionate about this for 3 years. I'll still be passionate about it. And yes, the tax increase and utility increase, my homeowner's insurance went up $1,000. I can only imagine what other people's situations are too, so I look at the increase. We had trash increase last year, which was a lot. And, but the Lone Pine, I hope that whole reconsideration thing gets kind of set aside. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Ms. Doretta Park, and then Ms. Mary Brown.
Welcome, Ms. Polk.
Good evening, Board. My name is Doretta Park. I'm a citizen of Riviera Beach, and it's very good to see the co-chair, pro-chair, Shirley Lanier back, and I hope you're feeling better. I want to ask a question. What materials are stored in the trailer? It's called the Wilcock. It's right across from the fire station by the city hall. What materials are stored in there? If you can answer that later. And also, the meetings that was held in several different areas of the city concerning our water plant. Now, Mrs. Park doesn't want her water, have to pay extra for her water utilities. I don't want to pay it because it is a hardship because we're on our Social Security, but it's necessary. We have to do this. We just have to tighten our whatever endeavors that we have, and we have to do this because we don't want the government coming in and taking over. That's the last resort that we need. This is decades that should have been done for our improvement of this water plant. So this is where we are now. So we just have to go ahead and take care of this situation, unfortunately, but it has to be done. Concerning, they had a lovely dedication to the new fire station, groundbreaking. It was very, very lovely. Chief Kurd, Chief Golden, and all our fine fire women and firemen are doing a remarkable job. And another thing I want to talk about is that when we did have the meetings concerning the utility and the water plant, they had it at different areas of the city, and it was outstanding. I learned so much listening to what our young people have to go through. It was very rewarding. Mr. Lowe and Mr. Stephen Dahl is doing a marvelous job. Also, Mr. Jackson and every one of our employees in the utility department. That is a very tough job. And I hope they're getting rewarded, especially when they have to go in these stations concerning the sewer, how they have to go down in the sewer. But I hope they're being compensated. And I thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Polk.
Ms. Mary Brown.
Madam Clerk, is that our final public comment card?
Yes, sir, it is.
Thank you.
give those to the board.
Welcome, Ms. Brown.
Good evening, board. This is Mary Bram, Riviera Beach. First of all, I would like to give condolences to our previous clerk that served here in the city, supervisor of election, the late Dr. Arthur Anderson. He lost his beloved daughter, his firstborn, Toy. So let us keep him in prayer and thought. As well as Deborah Hall, our very own, her beloved father, whom she cherished very much. So let's keep them uplifted in prayers and in thoughts. Miss Jackie, I was invited last month. I've been doing a lot of community stuff. And they celebrated their 120th church anniversary. And it was magnificent. That church is in the hub of redevelopment down there in that area. So they are really, really on the ball, just like we should be on the ball, and we will be on the ball. I gave you all some paperwork there because it is imperative that we as a city get that water plant done. And on Monday night, I was over there. And I was so impressed with the skill set and the ability of the staff and the workers that operate to maintain that what we do have. Kudos to them. But most of all, Haskell, if you all look at the paperwork that I gave you all, 20 gallons equals 1,000 gallons at $3.37 a cost. Look at what we're paying there for a gallon of water, a 20-ounce can, 20-ounce bottle of ketchup. Those other items that we use every day. It is imperative that we get this water plant done, up and running. I've been educating different various peoples as well as communities. They are fielding it out too. And they are speaking in reference to the city of Riviera Beach and hoping that when you build these things here, how can you not expect for people to come? You have to have adequate facilities in order to serve them. We must get this city here moving in a direction for the century that will precede us. It is imperative that we do these things. In residence, you talk about jobs all the time. Get up and apply yourself. Get your skill sets. Get your trades. Learn the techniques because these jobs are coming online. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, Ms. Brown.
And my water bill was $394. I'm sorry, my light bill, $394. Here it is here.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Brown. Board, discussion by city manager?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I just wanted to speak briefly
I was like
on
300,
the
yeah.
water main break. I did receive an email this morning, and Mr. Lowe can provide more specificities on a water main break on Australian Avenue. It is affecting 2 properties, but it is a significant piece of infrastructure that was damaged. Mr. Lowe, if you just want to provide some perspective on that.
Michael Lowe, Executive Director of the Utility Special District. Mr. Chairman, at about 1 o'clock in the morning, we had a major break on a 12-inch transmission main along Australian Avenue. First noticed in our control room because we saw pressures diving in the system. So people were called in. We identified finally where the problem was, and we called in our specialist contractor. We've reached the point where the repair has been made, but we've still got to repair the road that got taken out when the line broke. Hopefully within the next day or 2, that will happen. So there's 1 lane open going north whilst we do this repair. This was an old pipe, probably went in the 50s, and we're trying to ascertain why the side of it blew out, but basically a chunk of pipe blew out. There was no overpressure in our system, so we're still trying to, we probably faulty manufacture originally many years ago, and it just worked itself out over time.
Mr. Chair. I
Thank you
have
for
a
comments, Mr.
question.
Lowe. Go ahead, Councilwoman Miller Anderson.
Did we try to put something out to let people know that the road was closed? Because I know I ran into it early this morning and again this afternoon, and it kind of forced everybody down. If you were trying to go north on Australia, it forced everybody on 9th Street, kind of without warning, because
Notices were put out. We could have done it the notice, it didn't mention quite well that the road itself was closed, but it did said there was a temporary problem there. So yes, I mean, the crews started at about 3:30 in the morning doing the repair. So they did put out an MOT, but no, there wasn't actually a very specific thing saying there was a problem on that road. But there was a notification about the main break and that it was causing a problem.
so you said that there's one lane open now?
Yes.
Going north? Okay, because it wasn't, that just happened in the last few hours?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
I also did just send communication to staff. If there's any disruption in traffic patterns or there's any disruption in services, we also need to make sure we place that on the website as well as social media, and then even try to geofence through our Q alert, or not Q alert, our code red to inform folks of that particular situation. So we'll make sure from a communication standpoint, we handle that a little differently in the future. And Mr. Chair, I also, one of the comments that were made with respect to the trailer that is out by the old fire station 87, that is the construction trailer. So those are offices for the construction for fire station 87. So that's what those offices will be utilized when construction activities commence. Right now, they're doing some interior demos on the former fire station.
Any additional comments from public comment you want to address, Mr. Evans?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Discussion by city manager?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Discussion by city attorney?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. City council committee reports? Statements by the mayor and city council, starting with the mayor?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman McCoy?
Yes, Mr. Evans, can you speak to us and tell us what's the latest on the PBA collective bargaining agreement? This has been outstanding for quite a while, and I'm a little concerned that we're going into a new fiscal year and we don't have anything yet.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
From the last communications that I received is that we have proffered an additional offer to the PBA and now looking to resolve some of the outstanding issues. It was set to go before an arbitrator, but both parties are working together to try to resolve that. I don't know if our human resources director or our finance director could provide any more additional details, but I know the last iteration was we were going to provide them with some calculations and numbers for them to have some additional conversations with their rank and file. But our intent is to get this resolved. Mr. Sherman?
Yeah, again, Randy Sherman, Director of Finance Administrative Services. Just actually received communication from the mediator today. For the next session we're looking at October 23rd and 24th. We met 2 weeks ago with the group, which was productive, and additional information was provided to the union group today. And again, the next session is scheduled for October. We're trying to schedule it for October.
Okay, I don't know what we're talking about. I'm asking for an update. You guys are saying what you're doing, but literally this has been outstanding. Can we have a briefing on what is outstanding? Because I mean, talking about when you're going to meet with a mediator is not what I was looking for. I'm trying to figure out what issues are still outstanding that have not been negotiated on that is causing us. I mean, we're probably at 10 months now.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
It would be my recommendation if we are to provide an update with the board that we can do so in executive session because that is a subject of bargaining. So we can look to facilitate that. if that's the pleasure of the board.
No, that's not my pleasure. I mean, I think in-person meeting individually for those that may be interested, but I certainly am because, we're going into a new fiscal year and clearly we have not resolved those issues. So I don't know that it's necessary to convene a special executive session, but I certainly want to know if it means to having a in-person meeting. So can we look to do that?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
We can look to facilitate a in-person meeting with the negotiation team on the city's behalf, and if the elected officials are available for those one-on-ones, we can certainly accommodate that. That's not a problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman, go ahead.
Don't go with Mr. Sherman. I'm looking to, I know you just mentioned to me, there's been, I think, a communication regarding the trash. Can someone share with me what's the latest on us addressing the trash items?
Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
I know that there is a discussion, a community town hall meeting that is supposed to be set for the first week in October. There are some conversations that the team has had with respect to potential modifications to the solid waste contract. And so that's something that we do want to bring forward, as well as the solid waste ordinance. So those are still in the review process, but we did want to get the feedback from the community and then have a more robust policy discussion with the board on solid waste services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just today, I got a call from a resident about something I thought was very interesting I never heard of before, and this is taxation without representation. And I will restate what one of the previous speakers said, that there's an issue with trash. So a few things. Number one is a resident informed me today that he has a vacant lot that he owns, and apparently there was a demolition of a house, and he still pays a water bill because he's still connected to the system. But good companies has decided to tag the trash, and they choose not to pick it up despite him paying for monthly trash service. So I don't understand how they can go through and decide to pick and choose whether or not they want to pick up the trash. Certainly they don't have a roster of all of the accounts that have active trash services. So I don't understand why they would do that. So could you provide some insight on that?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please, Mr. Evans.
Certainly, if you can provide us with the reference property and we can check. I don't know, Mr. Sherman, if you've had any issues like that you've handled.
No, what it sounds like, they do actually have a list of all of our active accounts. When we transferred over, we provided them with that list. If it's a vacant lot, it would not be listed for service. So again, I'd like to see the address and we can certainly follow up on it. But my guess is this is some dumping on that lot that's going on. And again, if it's not on their service list and it's illegal dumping, you're right, they will not pick it up. But if you provide the address, then we can have it addressed.
I'll certainly do that for you. And his reason for doing it is because sometimes the trash come late and he doesn't want a pile of trash sitting in front of his house. So he puts it to the adjacent lot right next to him. And it's like, there was a structure there at some point, and apparently he's still paying a bill. Now, to that point, when I went out to see exactly what he was referring to, I literally drove up Avenue R, and in the 3200 block, I noticed that our crews have went and cut several easements and literally have left trash there for days. And perhaps I'm guilty of interference again, because you know what I did? I immediately notified Mr. Cedric Clark over in Public Works, and I gave him the actual photos, because here's why. We can't sit here and tell residents they can't dump trash if our very own crew goes down and cleans out an easement and brings a massive amount of trash and vegetation. It shouldn't be sitting there for days on end. So apparently this was absolutely work that was done by city employees. So, I just think we got to be consistent. If we're going to tell residents that they can't have trash that accumulates in front of their homes or piles that are put out too early, it certainly should apply. And even more startling, right? I don't know that our crews even recognize that sidewalks are emphasis on walking. A person's not to walk down the street. They have the trash literally blocking the sidewalk. So if you're on if you're in any kind of handicap accessible wheelchair or something, you literally have to drive into the road. So I don't understand how we seem to miss the mark on so many important issues. And clearly, Mr. Clark and his team was able to take care of it almost immediately. But these are kind of issues that I don't have an answer, and I can't defend why we choose to leave our trash on the sidewalk, but when residents actually pay for trash service, they don't get it. To the point that I still want to understand what we're going to do with this trash, because there are cases where we rubber stamp and vote on items that staff bring that's half baked. And I'll remind you, it was a year ago this week where the city council had adopted the goods company franchise agreement, and all of the exhibits and franchise cost escalation sheets were not even attached, similar to how we just voted and approved a resolution for procurement when clearly it's just a rubber stamp. It was not even necessary. So like you may think this is a lot that I sit here and discuss, but I just don't understand how we just missed the mark and we're so far off on just providing regular and routine service. So that's all I have in terms of that. I am going to ask one question, Mr. Sherman. It appears that this list that you have here, right? And I'll certainly elaborate more on it, but you provided us this documents, and I know I just asked you a question about the various historical costs for utility rates. And on this sheet is also water, stormwater, and I guess SW stormwater, or is that solid waste?
Solid waste.
Well, help me out. So internally, we're classifying this as solid waste as a utility?
Solid waste is a utility. It's self-supporting.
So this is why I have a problem with it. Because if it's solid waste, Mr. Sherman, then why didn't we follow Florida statutes of 180 when it comes to notice when we increased the solid waste rates?
We didn't increase the rates. Those rates.
My point exactly. We did not.
Those rates are the rates that you have a third party who's doing your solid waste collection. They set the rates.
So
they set the rate. We collect it. We give them their money.
So
that's a pass through.
So, but we earn franchise fees off of that.
That's correct.
But so you're telling me, so my issue, we're in my community where we're paying for solid waste and we're already receiving it through the association. Good companies responsible for that?
Good company sets the rates that we bill.
Right, but I don't have containerized curbside pickup. The city's charging me for it.
Yes, and we're working with the HOAs to try to change those billings. And I'll tell you, 2 weeks ago, I met with Marsh Harbor, and Marsh Harbor, it's actually cheaper doing it the way that it's currently being done. So they had no interest in converting to another system. Today I had a call with folks at Sugar Sands, and we're going to go through all of them and see if we could do something to change those rates. But we had to get permission from the good company to do that, because again, they set the rates.
Okay, thank you. I don't know what that means, but all right, thanks.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
With respect to the pile of debris that was referenced, Mr. Clark said that those weren't our crews. Those were outside service providers, and we actually get a lot of that. When our crews are asked to clean alleyways and easements, routinely the items are picked up in coordination with either our crews or the good companies that same day. But the issue that was reported to staff after staff looked into it, that wasn't our crews that did that dumping activity on the sidewalk.
Oh, so we've contracted with outside crews to do easement cleaning?
No, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Evans.
Yes, that wasn't, that was some dumping that occurred from persons can contract out with whomever. It wasn't our crews that did it. So I don't know if somebody decided to call or ask somebody to come and take care of that, but Mr. Clark just confirmed with me that those weren't our crews and that wasn't our.
Okay, I don't see that somebody would contract and have someone to go and clean the whole entire easement between 31st Street and 32nd Street along Avenue S. It clearly goes the whole entire block. So I just find that hard to believe.
Mr. Chair, if I can have Mr. Clark address the situation.
Welcome, Ms. Clark.
Good evening. Those were not our crews. Our crews, actually, when we clean easements, we pick up trash as they pick them up. As they cut, they pick them up. The pictures that you provided for me, they are pictures that are in front of residents' home. Anytime we clean out easements, we put it right in front of the easements and we pick it up immediately after we clear the lots.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So what happened to the trash? Was it removed?
I sent Nehemiah Spence and Arthur Johnson out there to try and find out where that trash came from. Once residents see that we clear the lots and clear easements, they bring out more trash. And I know you did say that you saw where they was dragging trash through the easements. That's from a homeowner who just dumped it from the back and brought it out to the side. Right now, we're working on providing information with the residents' ordinance that trash needs to be in front of their own property and not in empty lots and easements.
Okay, but I do recall seeing the one on Avenue R removed.
Yes, we did. I sent the truck out after I talked with you. I sent the truck out because we were actually servicing that area, and our crew said they had to actually go around that trash pile just to get to that easement. But it was not our crews who dumped that trash.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comments, Councilman. Councilwoman Miller Anderson?
No.
Councilwoman Pro Tem Lanier?
I just wanted to say that
Oh, push it down. Push it down the base. The base of the mic.
This part. Oh, okay, there we
you
go. That the Home Investment Partnership, which is a home program through Palm Beach County Housing and Economic Development, they have a $4 million award. It is a maximum award of $100,000 for first-time home buyers. They're going to open applications on Tuesday, October 10th. You can find out more information by going to Palm Beach County, pbc.gov, or also you can call 561-233-3606. And the person's name is Antoinette Prescott. Again, that is a $4 million award to Palm Beach County, and you can get up to $100,000 for first-time home buyers, and it starts October 10th for applications. And as you know, it starts at 8 a.m. that morning. So as you know, things go quickly. So I suggest if you're looking for funding for a first-time home buyer, you can start at that location.
Thank you, Pro Tem. Councilwoman Botel?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a reminder that our Singer Island Quarterly Town Hall meeting will take place a week from tomorrow. So if you haven't yet sent in your RSVP, please do so. Whether you're coming virtually or in person, we need you to respond. If you are coming virtually, we need to get your email address so we can send you the link. Mr. Evans will be the star of the show that night. We start at 6 o'clock at the Ambassador Center on Singer Island. That's next Thursday, September 28th. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Botel. And my only comments is Monday, we're going to be hosting a teen community conversation in regards to mental health. This is going to be focused on teens and for our teens of our community. So please, parents, you're more than welcome, but it's going to be an all-teen panel. It'll be a great opportunity for us to talk mental health with the young people in our community. Thursday, October 29th or 28th will be a community conversation, community business mixer. We're going to have the BBIC, Black Business Investment Corporation, the Chamber, and representatives from the city there to just talk to the local business community about the business opportunities that are partnering with the city. And last but not least, we've talked about the trash, but October 5th, we are going to have the mailers notices going out this week. But October 5th, right here in the marina, is going to be the Let's Talk Trash community conversation with the good company, with staff, and with our residents. So please make sure that you're in attendance. Staff will make sure that that press release and also flyers are going out to our community as soon as possible so that we can all have that conversation about trash. Board, with no further comments, this meeting is adjourned and we will reconvene our utility district meeting in 5 minutes.